One. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Ballbeck, and I'm very pleased to welcome all of you here to the launch of the SDG Exchange platform. For those of you here in person, thank you for braving the weather of Glasgow and making it here today. And for those of you joining us live on the live stream, hearty welcome from Glasgow and COP26. We're having it's been a historic week already, and we're looking forward to a lot more amazing commitments and other actions towards saving the planet. So 31 years ago, I had the great privilege to have a small hand in the crafting of the first cap and trade regime in the US Senate, and we used that market mechanism to solve acid rain. And we knew then that market mechanisms and cap and trade and other things similar would have a great role and be a powerful tool to address climate change. Well, here we are 3 decades, 30 years later, and the promise of that is now being fulfilled with the launch of this platform. With that, it's my honor to introduce the founder and CEO of the SDG platform, Jason Cooner, to walk you through.
Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming today. I know the rain has been a bit of a deterrent, but I appreciate everyone making it here. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about SDG Exchange, the background of the company, what we're trying to do, and announce the launch. So I'm founder and CEO of SDG Exchange, Jason Cooner, and we set out 4 years ago to analyze the Paris Agreement, figure out what technology plays we could do, and try to figure out if we could build out any technology infrastructure to help fulfill the Paris Agreement. And so 196 countries have signed the Paris Agreement to date. That's by far the most unilateral agreement signing in history, and we were very happy to see that many countries adopt. Pretty much every country has at this point, and we're proud to say that the U.S. signed earlier this year, so they're on board as well. So basically, the Paris Agreement is designed to do several things. One, it's designed to replace the Kyoto Protocol, which has been in place for the last 20 years. The Kyoto Protocol was the first attempt to try to create carbon markets, and it was reasonably successful in certain areas. You have the California Cap and Trade, you have New York RGGI, you have EU ETS, you have South Korea KETS, China ETS, which launched earlier this year, and you have the New Zealand ETS. The Australian ETS has kind of been up and down. It's actually, they've shut it down a couple of times in the past because they were mismanaging it, and kind of got it back up and running. So that's the state of affairs right now with the current compliance markets. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a turnkey solution that allows us to be able to go into existing governments and offer a solution so that they have no upfront costs associated with adopting the platform. And then hopefully we're going to eliminate their long-term risk associated with fulfilling Paris Agreement. One thing that we've been able to do so far in Puerto Rico, which is where we're based, is we've been working with the Puerto Rican government to develop a legislation that we hope to get passed early next year. And what it's going to do is it's going to allow us to work with them as a cooperative partnership, public-private sector partnership to achieve Paris Agreement goals, where we'll be acting as the technology provider and hopefully allowing them to take what's normally considered a cost center, being Paris Agreement, and turn it into a profit stream. And so far we've been able to design a platform that does that. So the current compliance markets are based on the notion that there's a set allowance of carbon that can be released every year. And so what's happened with like California Cap and Trade, EU ETS, and so forth, is you've had basically them define who's going to be presented these carbon allowances, and then who's going to have to buy those allowances in the marketplace. So basically, they set the buyers and sellers in the market. They also set the price, so there's no natural price discovery like there are in free trade markets. And so we wanted to try to address the natural price discovery that happens in free trade markets by building out SDG Exchange. So what we've done is we've gone in, we've looked at the compliance markets, we saw a number of different issues. One was the fact that, you know, they are operating in silos, they're not allowing any international trading. The last carbon market to do international trading was the EU ETS, and they turned it off, unfortunately, in 2020 because they wanted to manage their own markets more efficiently. So as of right now, the 6 or 7 compliance markets that are live actually don't do any international trading, which is what the Paris Agreement is really designed to do or enable. So if you look at basically what's happened, they also are allowing for potential of oversupply to be created in the marketplaces, and that's also hurting the compliance markets. It's one of the other aspects that we're helping to solve, because by integrating into the compliance markets, SDG Exchange can increase the liquidity of the marketplace dramatically, expand the customer base for the compliance markets, and hopefully get rid of a lot of that oversupply over time. So the problem, the Paris Agreement created an incentive for industries around the world to participate in sustainability by generating carbon credits. Now, I know there's a lot of talk right now of, well, if you create offsets, you're just allowing people permission to to continue to use fossil fuels. The reality is that there just hasn't been enough industry push to get the fossil fuel users to actually convert over and start using renewable energy and so forth. So it's created a scenario where offsets are kind of needed for anyone to achieve their goals. But the other nice thing about carbon offsets is they actually allow for action to be taken. So, for instance, the only way you can produce a carbon offset is if you actually build a renewable facility, clean energy of some sort, or you participate in some SDG program that can generate carbon credits to begin with. So there is a good component to that, and we're trying to facilitate that component. So the other thing about the compliance and voluntary markets to date is they're all based on, they have these outside registries, Vera, Gold Standard, and so forth, that are doing the approvals of the projects. Then you have them loaded into the markets. Right now the markets are not designed to actually stop any of the fraud. So they don't stop double printing, double spending, double counting, and soon to be double retirement. Unfortunately, because of that, they're really not prepared to actually offer a legitimate marketplace to the world. And so what we tried to do with SDG Exchange is we've built out the entire platform on blockchain. So we have a full-blown registry compliant with Gold Standard that's on our own blockchain. We do custody out of Wyoming, who has the best custody laws on the planet, if you ask me. And then, of course, we're taking advantage of Puerto Rican tax structures to lower costs so we can actually deliver better product to the customer base. Now, the nice thing about blockchain, of course, is it also is transparent, it's immutable, so it allows us to be able to have project developers load the documents into our network and be able to provide full transparency to the purchaser. So you actually can see all the engineering docs per CDM specification. You actually get to see all the transactions that were made based on those carbon credits. So if they're actually traded across multiple jurisdictions in multiple countries, across multiple owners, then you can track the audit trail of the asset throughout its lifetime to make sure that it hasn't been already retired and so forth. And once it's retired, we don't allow for any further trading of the instrument anyway. So the SDGX solution has multiple components. One is accurate carbon capture measurement mechanism. I come from a long background of IoT technology with another company called Archetype, who went on to be Siemens Global Strategic IoT vendor and then worked with Microsoft. So we have a lot of technology experience with doing the carbon capture properly from the measurement standpoint, and being able to feed that into a blockchain makes it, in my mind, the most secure market for custody management and asset verification. The compliance markets being integrated globally was, again, a huge step for us. And then the fintech strategies involving cryptocurrencies, I'll get more to that in just a minute, but we've kind of stayed away from the whole cryptocurrency thing because we're primarily focused on Paris compliance, so it really hasn't been our play. But we had the benefit of having an individual get involved last year, Michael Turpin, who's probably the biggest name in digital currencies, and he's been involved in roughly 68% of the currency rollouts to date. And so Michael got involved, and after he got involved, we decided to go ahead and start leveraging cryptocurrency for fundraising so that we could facilitate buying up carbon in our marketplace from vendors and help facilitate the overall operations. It made a lot of sense just from a fintech perspective. So we have a coin going live later this month, and I'll explain a little bit of that later. So our products, we have the SDG Exchange platform. That's the main trading componentry that allows for the international trading on blockchain. We have the SDG Exchange brokerage. Now, the brokerage is very important because it basically operates as an OTC desk, and it's one of a kind. It's a unique feature of our system. There really isn't another OTC desk out there, and what that allows us to be able to do is it allows us to be able to go into these large-scale organizations and government entities and negotiate long-term contracts. So if they want to be able to buy up for the next 5 years at a given price point, be able to manage their asset purchasing more effectively, or their production into the system more effectively by pre-negotiating long-term contracts, the OTC desk brokerage service allows them to be able to do that. Now, the Carbano network tokens. So we wanted to create a mechanism that would incentivize people to participate in the network. So we came up with a unique digital currency called Carbano. It's a discount coin that allows for a discount in purchasing carbon in our network. So it actually serves a purpose in being able to allow companies a way to buy up digital currency, sit on it for 3 years, and then turn around and use the discounting in the future where it's actually going to increase over time to be able to buy up carbon at a lower price. So it has a functional purpose within our network. Now, we're printing 21 billion Carbano coins, and the reason why we're doing this is because we're projecting out over the next 10 years our goals as an exchange, and we're wanting to trade roughly 2 billion credits a year on average. So what we did was we decided to print a coin for every one of the carbon credits we plan to trade, so that way everybody that's participating in the network can get a discount. So, and then there's the SDG ESG consulting side. Now, this is really what we're focused on with the government aspects. It allows us to be able to go in and consult, like Puerto Rico, for instance. We went in, we analyzed what their inventories were. They recently passed legislation that is going to allow them to roll out 3.8 gigawatts of solar on the island. And so we're already going to be intaking that on the platform and being able to produce carbon credits for the Puerto Rican government. That alone should generate probably in the neighborhood of about $180 million a year in new revenue for the government. And so we're really excited about the SDG consulting piece as well. So what does the SDG Exchange platform do? Well, it eliminates all the fraud, no doubles, and then, of course, by getting rid of all the fraud, no greenwashing. So you can actually see end-to-end transparency of project management, facilitation, and how the credits are being used and how they're being offset. And it's a fairly significant aspect of the system. So governments are interested in adopting the SDG Exchange for Paris compliance, and private sector multinationals are interested in adopting SDG Exchange for TCFD scoring management. And I'll explain TCFD a bit more in a minute. So the SDG Exchange brokerage, this is the OTC servicing. I've gone over that a little bit already. You can see where we acquire credits, we build reserves, we connect buyers, and we monetize for the buyer. It allows us to be able to provide the OTC desk services I've already described. So why would companies care about the TCFD? So this is a pretty big deal. I don't know if you know much about TCFD, but it stands for the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosure. It was set up by Mark Carney back in 2017. He finally left the Bank of England as a governor last year and announced that he was going to be working on TCFD full-time. And so what's happened with TCFD is they basically have created an SDG, a Dun & Bradstreet level scoring mechanism for SDGs. So it's going to require companies that want to potentially get loans in the future, companies over 500 employees, are going to have to comply with TCFD. In other words, they're going to have a full-blown sustainability program to get an SDG score. And so you can imagine when you go to a bank in the future, if you're a company over 500 employees, you'll have to show your Dun & Bradstreet score, and then you'll have to show your SDG score right alongside. And if one's deficient, obviously it's going to hurt your overall loan ability. So go on to the next. So that's it. And now I believe we have a brief video. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Adam E. Levine, and I'm the CEO of Token. Today I'll be walking you through the SDG Carbon Asset Monetization Marketplace, or CAM, as we near launch. The SDG CAM is a little different from what you're used to seeing. It, of course, has the basic functionality you'd expect. Countries and projects which generate carbon credits may list and sell those credits after going through a KYC AML process generally, and an in-depth audit process to ensure each specific project is in compliance with the most rigorous standards. On the other side of the marketplace, countries and companies who need to source carbon credits may do so with the knowledge that any carbon credit available to them has been validated and audited by the SDG Exchange team and partners. Buyers of credits may retain and provably retire those credits as needed to achieve compliance targets, but they also may convert them into a tokenized form of carbon credit known as an ITMO. This allows for them to be stored or transferred to other verified SDG users outside of the exchange itself. But even without turning your carbon credits into tokens, each purchase is recorded to a blockchain, making chain of custody tamper-evident, improving security, auditability, and accountability. Now, let's briefly walk through the various parts of the SDG carbon asset monetization marketplace. Here's a carbon credit consumer who's purchased offsets from several projects. From their dashboard, you'll see that some of them have been retired, while others have been converted into ITMO tokens. You can see this user's total balance of ITMO tokens and what their current value is according to the SDG Global Carbon Credit Index price here at the top of the screen. Any credits that haven't yet been retired to meet compliance targets or converted into ITMO tokens can have that done through this interface. When an asset is retired, the customer receives email confirmation and a standardized carbon asset retirement certificate to simplify reporting. Clicking this button lets a user submit carbon credits they've already purchased for conversion into ITMO tokens, which are then processed monthly and delivered to the user's account. They can later be converted back into carbon credits and retired if desirable. Tokenizing carbon credits in this way allows them to reach beyond just the SDG Exchange and become a global standard that may be used in any marketplace. A user may also choose to resell their carbon credits, which, since they've already been audited before their initial listing, is a simple process. Now let's take a look at the process of purchasing carbon credits from a verified and audited project. Here's an example microscale project in India. All the information on this page has been approved by an auditor before any potential buyer sees it. Here you'll find specific details, standards applied, information about the project developer, the scale of the project, and the specific sustainable development goals it impacts, as well as how many credits are available and at what price. This time we'll purchase 1,000 credits at a price of $22 each. I can pay with my credit card or wire money via ACH, in addition to cryptocurrency payment options such as Bitcoin and Ether. This isn't the first time I've purchased credits from this project, which I previously converted into ITMO tokens. Should I want to convert those tokenized credits back into something I can retire, I'd use this Reclaim Reserves option and pay with ITMO tokens instead of money. But this time, let's pay via a bank wire. Thanks to the magic of video, we'll skip ahead, and after payment is settled, we've got 1,000 more carbon credits available for our compliance needs. Now let's shift mindsets and become a seller rather than a buyer. On the sales page, we can see data about recent purchases. Once an item is loaded in and approved by the auditing team, the typical sale is fully automated and requires no further action from the merchant except watching as your credits are replaced by money. But let's dig a bit deeper and look at an active project. Here we can see all of our projects. This one has been approved and is available on the site right now, so we can't change any information. Here we see information about the project, standards applied, and details about the carbon assets it generates, along with any certification or other documentation relevant to it. Here we see the various issuances we've made of credits from this project, the minimum order size we're willing to accept from a buyer, along with images, pricing, and the current status of marketplace auditing and listing. All information must be audited before credits from a project may be listed publicly for sale. And this concludes our high-level tour of the SDG Carbon Asset Monetization Marketplace, powered by TokenLink. For more information, please visit sdgexchange.io, and thank you very much for your time.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening to the presentation, and we'd like to open it up. If people have questions, we open it up for the audience.
Hi, this is Nikolai. So I have a question about, you guys talked about IoT devices. Are you guys going to help like standardize, I guess, implementing the devices that you're going to collect the carbon metrics from as you go into countries and stuff and like kind of work with them?
Yeah, that's actually a good point, and something that hasn't been addressed in the marketplace yet. And so when you talk about IoT devices, they're basically just sensor devices with a communication piece to it, and it can transmit over Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee, or you can get into a more long-range solution, satellite, and so forth. But the thing is, how do these IoT devices potentially interface with each other, and how do they interface with potentially our marketplace? So we're actually already building out solutions for that so that we have some protocol definitions where people can submit data into the network. And I imagine that will mature over time depending on the customer base and the need. But right now there is no standard. We're trying to develop it just like everything else we're doing. So.
Can you speak more about who the target audience is, at least in the first phase of development? Is it retail customers? Is it...
Sure. Well, on the exchange side, it's obviously the buyers and sellers of the carbon credits. So it would be project developers. So you got your renewable facilities, you've got anyone doing forest preservation and stuff like that. They can generate an SDG project and generate the carbon credits and load them into the marketplace. Now the buyers would of course be the Shells, the Exxons and so forth, the companies that are producing the oil and gas or the companies that are using the fossil fuels. We're finding that there's a significant need within big pharma and other companies that are going after this. And you're really talking about, pretty large-scale companies need to be able to buy this stuff for compliance purposes. They're not requiring the mom-and-pop shops to have to buy this stuff. And we don't necessarily want them to unless they just feel the need to actually, offset their individual business models. So, but we will allow any company to buy in. And if individuals want to come in and buy offsets, they can do so as well and trade as a speculative commodity. So we're allowing full access.
Thank you so much. It's absolutely brilliant. I wonder, this exchange marketplace, could it be used for impact, like outcome-based financing for other metrics within the SDGs?
Good question, and yes, it can. Now, the goal is to try to build up these, not only the SDG analysis for the projects themselves, if you see that, it shows the different SDGs that they're impacting. That's important from a lot of investors' perspective, or people that want to buy the credits, because they'll want to buy credits that are targeted to the SDG goals they're most interested in. So that's one part of it. The other part of it, though, and I think it's far more significant, is the TCFD scoring aspect. So we're going to build TCFD scoring into the system so that when people want to leverage the platform for compliance purposes or for generating that TCFD score, we hope to be a bank direct solution for that. And that would be obviously advantageous for companies to participate in the marketplace because they'll have an automatic TCFD program working on their behalf. So. Yes.
Hi, thank you.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you for the presentation. Just kind of a question of volume. So currently 300 million tons are traded annually on the voluntary carbon market. So can you talk more about how you're going to basically do this journey from 300 million to 2 billion tons and where these projects are coming from and how you're going to source them?
Sure. Well, a lot of that is actually coming from the fact that, Paris Agreement got large-scale adoption. Another part of it, of course, is the TCFD enforcement. And as that starts kicking in more aggressively next year, we're expecting more and more companies to have to buy, and that's going to increase the demand. Now, the other part of it is because so many people have become aware of this, I imagine there are going to be a lot of individuals that are investors that are going to want to participate in the marketplace as well. Most people don't think of carbon as a potential investment store, but it's an actually really good investment vehicle. And if you look at last year, the global average price of carbon was probably around $20, $25. It's already gone between 30 and 35. If you look at the World Bank and the IMF estimates, by 2050 it's supposed to go to $400. So if you actually compare that 30-year trend line with the 30-year historical performance of the NASDAQ itself, it's actually outpacing the NASDAQ by about 400% per annum. So that's a very compelling argument for why people need to actually invest in carbon as a long-term investment vehicle. Yes.
Hi, this is super interesting. Can you talk a little bit about fungibility? It would be great if there was an order book where the price of carbon was a certain thing, just like the price of Bitcoin or the price of oil. And obviously there's a lot of steps because every carbon project is different and has different SDGs. So how do you look at sort of creating fungibility and creating liquidity?
I'm glad you asked that question because it's one of the points I left out. so basically what we tried to do with the marketplace, and we realized we were going to be dealing with some impoverished nations, and then we were going to be dealing with some first world countries, and of course the price disparity on some carbon is going to be inherent. So we tried to figure out our best, best means possible to create a normalization mechanism within the marketplace. So we can negotiate, for instance, with Zimbabwe, a given price point that they come into the market with, and it basically allows them to potentially be able to transfer it into an ITMO token. And that's the point of, actually the interface is not up, but if you notice there was an ITMO price point. That's actually the global average price of carbon that we're calculating as an index within our own market. So when a Zimbabwe credit comes in and they want to basically price fix it to the global average, they can convert it to an ITMO token. Now what does that do? Well, it gives them the benefit, say for instance if their government runs into problems, the market collapses there, or their government actually gets disrupted in some capacity, that the carbon price is actually set by the global average at that point for the ITMO token, so they're actually getting an insurance policy on their carbon credit generation. And I think this is a very powerful mechanism within the marketplace. Now the other part of that is we can pre-negotiate deals so that people are supplying in so that we normalize the price with the ITMO token itself. So when you even have more expensive markets come in, they just actually get more ITMO tokens. That, you know, it's not a 1-to-1, it'd be maybe a 2-to-1 kind of thing, so that we're actually balancing it out with the ITMO token. And that seems to be the best normalization mechanism we can come up with to date.
How does your platform help the transition through a negotiated Article 6, either obviating the need for Article 6 or facilitating something happening?
So yeah, actually it's the key goal of this is to fulfill Article 4 and Article 6. Article 4 being the nationally determined contributions, which is the accounting and reporting mechanism side of the equation. Article 6 is the monetization piece, and it's made up of 3 components. Article 6 has paragraph 2, which defines this internationally transferred mitigation outcome instrument. It also enables the international trading, so to speak. Article 6, paragraph 4 is actually the replacement for Kyoto compliance markets, so it allows the compliance markets to continue under Paris regime. And then Article 6, paragraph 8 is something called non-market mechanism, and that's actually not that well defined. We decided to go ahead and implement non-market mechanism as digital currency because that just gives us a mechanism to be able to potentially pay people in our marketplace. And one of the things that we tout about our marketplace is it's the only one that offers a guaranteed performance mechanism, so that if we have a carbon credit come into our market and we can't find a buyer, we can't trade it, then we can turn around and pay them in digital currency for that asset. So you're guaranteed to get paid in our marketplace, and it's the only one that does that. Okay. Yeah. Her. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Are you planning other kind of asset classes like carbon removal credits, or restoration credits for forest, or any kind of other that could either be translated into carbon or that are more valuable in it per se?
Sure. The value per se has been along the lines of how much functionality is being provided, or how much benefit is being provided. We're trying to just normalize it on the inbound. So we could get into some of that, but we're really just trying to standardize. So carbon's carbon. So if it's a carbon offset or a carbon allowance or a carbon credit, we're pretty much pricing them the same way. And we're doing that on purpose because the whole point of the market is to try to normalize the price point worldwide. And if we do that effectively, we're going to be empowering a lot of these second, third world countries that haven't been able to build out ETS markets and so forth, and can't impose a tax on their local population because they simply don't have the money. So that's one aspect of it. The other is that, yes, we are creating other asset classes, and that the whole goal of the SDG Exchange is actually to enable all 17 SDGs. So we started with carbon. That's the obvious, because there's already preceding market designs and guidance on how to do so properly with the ISO standards and so forth. Now we're getting into water. We have 2 methodologies already for water assets that we're going to be using for water purification plants and water preservation and cleanup. And so those are some of the more aggressive methodologies, but they're starting to come online. We're hoping that as these other methodologies come online for other SDGs, that we'll be able to create asset classes for those as well that may or may not be equivalent to the core ITMO credit, but the ITMO token. But the goal is to have it all potentially work into the ITMO, so that we figure out either through the reduction of carbon associated with another SDG, or we just do a monetary equivalency, so that we're actually balancing out the marketplace. But we do want to enable the other SDGs in the market, and we're hoping more companies get involved in the methodology development. I was in Dubai a few weeks ago, and we presented at the Future Innovation Summit, and after we got done, SAP came up and offered a research group to allow us to try to start figuring those SDG goals out. So we're hoping to follow up on that soon and get that started. So there is interest in the technology space on developing those standards, and we're hoping to do so.
Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
It's something the world really needs. I'm curious, I have sort of a two question. One is, I'd love it if you could talk a little bit more about the underlying blockchain technology. I'm curious, what layer 1 protocol are you guys using, or is it your own? And then with that, there are many people talking about this. I've probably read into a dozen people who are like, we're going to build a global tokenized carbon exchange. And I'm like, oh, come to our lunch on Monday, it's launching. Right. Which has been very satisfying. So we're glad to have you guys as a partner. But I'm curious, we launched a couple of tokenized carbon assets over the last couple of years through Ultra Standard, our system, but doesn't really go through to blockchain. And I'm just curious, how other groups could plug into this so that we could really accelerate. Because I think how you guys will really win is becoming a kind of interchange hub for all the different tokenized carbon technologies that are about to arrive. There's a flood of them coming, and if you could be that point, it would be very interesting. So if you could talk to those two things.
Sure. I'll answer the second one first, and I'll ask you to repeat the first question after. So the second point, yes, we're looking to become basically the hub for the industry, hopefully. If we don't, it doesn't matter. It's a $100 trillion opportunity. We just want to participate and do what we can to try to contribute. Now, as far as integrating other solutions, we are looking at a number of technologies right now to help on not only the asset production side, to automate the project management piece and so forth, try to hopefully get rid of some of the engineering costs associated with getting these projects up and running to begin with, because it's been a big deterrent on actually conserving when you have to spend $30,000 to $50,000 in engineering fees just to get the project started. So we're going to try to automate as much of that as possible. We're looking for any vendors that would do so. So, that said, the other part, of course, is we're looking for any instrumentation. So if there are any fintech products, any green bond financial providers and so forth that want to get involved in the process, we would encourage them to do so, and we're looking for any partnerships we can. So with the... the underlying blockchain technology, well, we basically broke it up into two different modes. And so we have a private permission blockchain that we do all the custody of the carbon and the ITMOs with, and we run that out of Wyoming. And then we have a public-facing blockchain that actually submits into the broader exchanges. So, for instance, we'll submit Carbano tokens into SushiSwap and Uniswap to begin with, and then we'll move on to Binance and some of the other exchanges. So we're kind of doing a hybrid. We're doing a public and a private ledger layout. And as far as the implementation itself, I'll have to talk to the engineers about that. I'm not sure exactly what all they're using at this point, but yeah.
So the Carbano token is basically a discount token. So where's that discount come from? If I've bought a discount token, who's giving up the, can you just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, well, there's a bit of arbitrage going on already in the marketplace, and we're utilizing that arbitrage to give a discount. Okay. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the answer.
Okay. Yeah. Can you click on that a little bit more? What an arbitrage between...
Yeah, there are undervalued assets in the marketplace, so we buy up those undervalued assets, which allows us to be able to get the discount.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very, very much for coming today. And I know we can stay here a little while longer. I think we have coffee and tea and dessert. And for those here and those joining us on the live stream at 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, correct? At 2? This is going to transition to a live clubhouse conversation about what's happening, what just happened here, and then broadly what's happening at COP26. You're all welcome to participate and stay for that. So there will be coffee and tea and desserts and things. So welcome to stay. We encourage you to stay, and thank you all for coming today.
were the hours, but hours to find. There was no way to live in simple dreams. There was no straightness to our line, gravel in hand. The darling, we're moving the mountains around. This is the fire of leaving things when the love is gone, but the need remains. Into the shivering cold of day when the house is gone, but the street remains. Oh, I guess it's true. I guess these rivers never knew. And so finally the nighttime comes. There is no light to cast a blame, no need to hide, no fear who I'd meet in some grocery lane. This is the fire of leaving things when the love is gone, but the need remains. Into the shivering cold of day when the house is gone, but the street remains. Oh, I guess it's true. I guess these rivers never knew. And I'll sing of seasons till you turn me off. I see their way of letting go, they'll be the same. And whatever changes, these changes I know. This is the fire of leaving things when we're not that strong and the need remains. Into the shivering lights of day when the house is gone, but the fields remain. Oh, I guess it's true. I guess these rivers never knew.
sit here in the track already.